Welcome to welcome to another episode. How do you like that, John? I'm going through puberty. Welcome to another episode of Leading Through Crisis. As you know, we've been talking for about 10 days now about John Maxwell speaking to the world, giving a leadership response, a leadership voice to the crisis, to the coronavirus that we all are reacting and responding to. And I hope that you've been able to join John Maxwell right here the last 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. It has been some of the best content, some of the most relevant that we have seen ever from John Maxwell. And it's been for you. It's been our attempt to give you a message of hope, a message of leadership in today's world. But today is about you. It's about your ability to ask John Maxwell questions. And so around the world, we have had over 150 countries join us, John.
Wow.
We have had over 750,000 people view these last 3 days, 25,000 comments and hundreds of questions. And so today is about asking questions. Now, we're going to get started in just a minute, but we made a commitment. John made a commitment a few days ago that we would pick 10 comments from all of you that's been sharing comments, and we would take 10. He's going to sign a book to you, and then we're going to send it to you if we pick your comment. Today I have 10 more. I want to get started with these 10, John, and let you hear a few comments from the people you've impacted. John's going to sign a book. To claim your book, you need to email hope@johnmaxwellteam.com. You'll get that book in the next couple of weeks. Also, if you have a question today, feel free, write in a question at hope@johnmaxwellteam.com, and hopefully we'll pick your question to ask of John. John, Amanda Thompson said, "Thank you for adding value across the globe. I listen to you on my daily travels. Can't wait to feed my faith and add value to others from my home office. Thanks for showing us we can still add value during these times."
Good.
Thanks, Amanda. Rebecca Butler-Mona said, "John Maxwell is truly a gift, so genuine and deeply caring, with so much true wisdom and a sincere desire to share it to make a difference to others. He is incredible, and he offers those great tidbits in live webinars for so many of us. Thank you." Then we go to Rita Casanova. What a great last name, Rita. I want to trade you last names. Rita said, "Strengthening your power muscle. Stand up tall, be authentic, and inspire others to do the same thing." We had a response from Hugo Rafael Hernandez. She said, "This is the best way to invest my time. God bless you, Mr. John. I will be a part of your team." She's going to join the John Maxwell team.
So good. I love that. Welcome.
Then we had Melissa Charles. She said, "I choose to live a positive life stance from today. My family and I will make it through this crisis."
That's terrific.
Isn't that true? Esther Hoyes said, "I'm a college professor and I started teaching my classes online this week. I was encouraging my students to stay focused, to stay positive, and stay present just for today." Ornelia Nardine said, "Practicing what I am learning right now takes a lot of self-reflection. It's not just that some great sessions of great information. These insights are a confrontation and they hold up a mirror to me. But I believe in lifelong learning. I believe in growth and maturity, and that excites me to keep taking steps of faith, even though fear sometimes pops up."
Sure.
We know that feeling, don't we, John?
We do.
Tanya Gray said, "I have been stuck by fear. It's not a fun place to be. It's debilitating. I am so blessed to be free of fear and living a life of joy, hope, blessing, and courage because of this summit." Deborah Stacy said, I'm a recovering fear pusher, and I'm becoming a faith pusher."
Come on. I like that.
Deborah, that's good, incredible. Deborah. Thank you so much. And then finally, John, Donna McDaniel. She said, "This is so thought-provoking. Don't feed the beast.
Yeah.
What I focus on expands.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's good.
John,
They listened, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Listened well.
I'm going to ask you a question before we get started here about asking questions. But any comments or thoughts or reflections as you've now slept on the last 3 days?
Yeah, I have. Mark, unquestionably, I feel fulfilled. I think we did our best. We really did our best to deliver to people, almost 1 million people, it sounds like to me, a faith message, a hope message, a leadership message. And so I'm just extremely excited about the responses that you're reading. And of course, there were hundreds and hundreds of comments that you didn't even get to. But we're just here to help. And again, we have the Minute with Maxwell, and starting Thursday for 60 days, literally, I'll have a statement of strength for you that you can just pick up for yourself, pick up for your people, your team, your family, and let's just stay engaged together. I think mainly the best thing we can do is just keep engaged and keep encouraging and keep guiding and being a little bit of light. I think that's the best thing we can do right now.
Yeah, I agree. And so many of our coaches, John, are doing that. We've been on the phone.
They are.
On FaceTime or Facebook, and we have a lot of ambassadors out there, ambassadors of hope and confidence.
Yeah, our John Maxwell team coaches, I'm very proud of them, Mark, because, obviously they're where I can't be. I mean, they're in thousands and thousands of communities around the world, and they're so eager to add value, and they have that JMT DNA that I love about them. And just if you're a John Maxwell team coach, you take responsibility for your community and just be a lid lifter now during this time. You be that shining light for them.
So, John, we're going to spend the next hour and a half or so until we run out of questions.
Sure.
Or at least the next hour and a half, we're going to spend some time with questions. And I don't know that I have experienced so many questions and so many perplexities, uncertainties. Never been here before. You haven't been here before. These are unprecedented times. And so there's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be quite the range. And some of these questions, I've got to be honest with you, I may check out and go take notes and write a book and write some paragraphs myself because, John, in running our companies, we've been doing this summit down in Florida, but this afternoon I got to get back to Atlanta. I got to run some businesses. I got to make some decisions. We got to make it through this, and so the rubber's kind of hitting the road. We've been on summit high, and now the rubber hits the road. But you wrote a book. Good leaders ask great questions. Yeah. What's the precipice of that book, and what is the importance of questions in your leadership?
Well, it's interesting, Mark. The reason I wrote the book, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, is I think that we have a really mistaken thought about leadership, and that is that leaders are always giving answers. And I think that the only reason leaders can give good answers is because they've asked good questions. And I can remember, let me give you one illustration of this. When I was, as you know, for 25 years, I was a pastor, and by the time I was 28, I had the 10th largest church in America. And so, Mark, I was invited to Orlando, Florida, to meet with about 50 other pastors of successful churches. And I was very honored to be there. And when I got there, I realized I was in my 20s, and all the rest of them would be 40 and above. I mean, so there was a pretty much of an age variance between me and the rest of them. And I can so remember listening and getting a lot of help, and it was really a good conference. But the last session, they ask us to, if you have questions, ask them. And I had two questions that I really had on my mind. But to be honest with you, I just didn't ask the question. I felt I was a little bit out of my league. They were all more experienced than me, and I got a little bit intimidated with it. They didn't intimidate me. I intimidated myself in the process. So I left that conference and didn't ask the questions, and I drove from Orlando to Lancaster, Ohio, which would have been maybe that's a long drive. But anyway, on the way home, I said to myself, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm never going to be in a meeting where somebody knows something I don't know and just not ask the question. And then as a leader, I was very choleric and I was very directional in my early years. And I discovered was that there were a lot of times I was leading by assumption because I hadn't asked questions. You have to find people before you can lead them. And I skipped the finding part when I didn't ask questions, and I just did the declaring part and assumed, okay, you're all on the same train I am, so let's go. And so the biggest transition I've had in my leadership life, I think, if you had known me as a young leader, you would have seen a very confident, strong, directional leader. And I think today you see me as, I think I'm still very confident, very strong, but I have a great... instead of having my agenda anxiety, which is a huge mistake leaders have, I have a connecting anxiety. I want to make sure I know where the people are so that I can lead them versus where I am. Leaders are too committed to making sure everybody knows their thoughts and their vision and their ideas and where they stand, and are, I think, not near enough committed to finding out where the people are. And then, obviously, you can take them and lead them. So I love leadership, but I think I love leadership a little bit more with including others and finding out their thoughts and taking their ideas and thoughts and integrate them with mine and hopefully helping them. So
Well, let's get into some questions.
Go.
And by the way, we have questions from all over the world. I am from Atlanta, Georgia, if you cannot tell. Some of your names may not sound right from my southern perspective, so forgive me for that. But I do want to call you out because we're greatly appreciative of you engaging in the conversation of leading through crisis. So, John, the first question is from Lillian Opioid. She asked, would you speak to us a little about values in this crisis? Whereas there's hope that it's a new dawn and we're going to take adversity into advantage. But would it be right to say that we need to recheck our values as a people around the world?
Well, I think it's very right to think that. In fact, I think one of the reasons we're so lost today is that we've lost our way in the area of values. And Mark, you know this because one of our passions is to help countries, and it'll soon be communities, experience transformation. And what we've discovered is that transformation begins on the inside, not the outside. Transformation begins with values. And we've discovered that when people learn good values and they live them, they just increase their value. They increase their value, they add value to themselves, they add value to others. And so I think that, yes, we've lost our way, and we need to return back to the basic values that can make a difference. I mean, when you think of the golden rule, just treat others as you would want to be treated. That withstands that connects with every religion, every culture, and that's just a good thing to do and to be to treat others as you would want to be treated. Well, that's a great value, and the moment that we begin to live out those values and embrace them, life does get better for everybody. So yes, I think definitely we've kind of lost our way, and we need to return to some good basic values.
John, you may kill me for this. The rest of the Q&A may be with just John by himself. But John, one of your values is generosity. One of your values is being abundant in your thinking with others. And I know the number of zeros that you and I are looking to in our businesses of impact, negative impact.
Sure.
If some things don't turn around really quick. So that's on your mind, but I watched you practice that value of generosity just the other day in a restaurant. John went, he didn't even know I was watching him, but I was watching. John, you went to every server that was getting ready to have to shut the dining room down. You went to every server and you gave them a large bill tip, not even people that had served you that particular day. And you just made sure that everybody knew somebody had them in their mind during this crisis that's going on. And I watched you keep the value of generosity even when there's so much uncertainty in your life, and you made a huge difference to the group that day. And so I don't know if you have something you want to say about generosity and how you keep practicing that amidst so much uncertainty and a little bit of scarcity thinking that's gripping us right now, but we've got to keep that value of generosity going.
Well, thank you. I didn't know you and were watching, but the point is that values don't change. Values don't change. Life changes, circumstances change, difficulties come and go, but values are values. They're good. That's who we are. It's getting back to that Roy Disney quote, when you know what your values are, then it's easy to make decisions. And, I watched you with the value of putting people first make some very difficult financial decisions with the John Maxwell team. And yet you were true to your decision of putting people first. And what I tell people all the time is if you just follow right values, don't worry about the fallout. And by the way, you could follow right values and have huge fallout. You could have huge loss. So I'm not just saying if you keep your values, everything's going to come your way. But here's what I know. If you keep your values, you can look at integrity right in the eyes of people and say, I put you first. Now, who's going to argue with that? I mean, I don't mean this unkindly, but when we think of, and we don't need to stay on this long, but I think that the reason that politicians have so much of a gap between themselves and the people is I think people basically look at them and feel they don't put them first. I think they put themselves first. And it's just never right to put yourself first. It is not about me. If I'm a leader, it's about you. And so the value of putting people first, I mean, if anybody ever needed a good tip in a restaurant, it's right now. They're losing their jobs. In fact, I've been kind of on a press to everywhere I go to try to be kind and generous to people because some of them, they have nothing. They're going to lose a lot. And why wouldn't I want to jump in and help them? By the way, generosity has nothing to do with money. I mean, it has nothing to do with. I know a lot of very wealthy people that are very stingy and not generous at all. So it's not like if I had money, I would be generous. No, generosity. I know some beautifully generous people that don't have very much at all, but I can tell you what, they'll give, they'll share, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to another question. Lionel Sordo, thank you for your question, Lionel. Dear John Maxwell, it's always comforting to hear what you have to share, and I'm thankful for that. I have a friend who has all the symptoms of COVID-19. She got it from her husband, who is a medic, and her brother, who is in law, is in ICU because of the same virus. She has a little precious daughter. Right now, that is her biggest concern. What do you say to people as they're looking death or uncertainty in their eyes right now as it relates to this virus?
Wow. That's a serious question there, my friend.
I know.
But there's an answer, or at least I will share what I do. If I were interacting with any of those people that had that virus and that were in pretty dire straits, I would share my faith with them. There are at times like this, and I won't stay on this long because I don't want to offend a person that doesn't believe in God, because you're my friend. And by the way, if you don't believe in God, God loves you anyway. God doesn't wait for you to love Him for Him to love you. But I would share my faith because it's at times like this I really wish people had faith, because it's one thing for me to think positive, and I think that positive thinking is very good. But it's another thing for me to have a faith in God, who really does hear my prayers and does answer my prayers and does care unconditionally for me. And I think the best gift that I could ever give a person in deep, deep trouble was, a lot of times I'll look at them, Mark, and I'll say, I wish you had my peace, or I wish you had my strength, or I wish you had my joy. And they'll say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, what I wish is I wish you had it because you need it right now. And they'll say, well, you must be amazing. I say, well, no, I'm not amazing at all. It's my faith in God that gives me that peace, that strength, and that joy. And many times I have the privilege of introducing them into this faith. But the main thing, I would want them to have anything that I have that I think would be an advantage to them.
Yeah.
And to me, the reason I share my faith is I'm not trying to convince people my way. I'm just trying to share with them something that I have that works for me. And it's kind of like, if you have anything that works for you, don't you want to share it or give it to people? I think that just makes common sense. So
Absolutely.
That's what I do.
Well, and so we just got this question in. So we're taking questions from 2 days ago, questions from yesterday. This is from Sherry.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you the question, then I'm going to have to give just a little bit of context, okay? So Sherry says, this is her question. How do you deal with the barbers in your life who just want to always be negative? Okay, you got the question. For those of you that did not watch yesterday, John tells the story of the guy that was going to Italy. He was going to on a little bit of vacation, and while his barber was cutting his hair, the barber kept telling him all the things he was doing, the airline he was going, the hotel he was staying at, the region of Italy that he was going to, all of these negative things. And then the last thing the guy says was, I'm going to get to see the Pope, but I guess that's not going to be good either. And the barber said, you're never going to see the Pope. And so finally he went and came back, and the barber said, well, how'd the trip go? And he said, well, it went really good. Everything was really good, not anything like you said. But he said the Pope did have really an interesting question. He said, where did you get that terrible haircut? And so that kind of sets the context. Hilarious story. So Sherry again is saying, John, how do you deal with the barbers in your life who just want to be negative?
I remember I was doing a conference one time, and that question was asked me, Sherry, and so I did something that was just, this is fun, but there's some truth in it, okay? I shared with people, I said, if you've got somebody that's always been negative, when they come up and start dumping that junk on you, I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I want you to take your left hand, this finger here, and put it in this ear. And I want you to take your right hand, take this finger, and put it in this ear. And then I said, I want you to close your eyes. And as they're dumping that garbage on you, I want you to do as loud as you can. I want you to go, ah! I said, I promise you, they'll stop immediately. And of course, the audience just went crazy laughing. And then I said, here's what's really good about that. What's really good about that is the next time they start to dump on you, all you got to do is go kind of slow toward your ears, and they'll get the message real quick. This guy doesn't want to hear all this negative junk. I mean, I was doing a statement today of strength. And I can't remember who it was that I quoted, but it was such a fabulous quote. And he said, basically, negative thinking is like putting fertilizer on weeds. Wow. I mean, if you were out in the garden, wow, and you were fertilizing weeds, and somebody saw it, they'd say, "You're an idiot. What are you doing? Those weeds, there's no return there. You want to get the weeds out of your garden. You're fertilizing them." Well, isn't it amazing we could see somebody fertilize weeds in a garden and say how disgusting and dumb that is, and we can let people have negative thinking and talk negatively, and nobody ever walks in their life and say, that's not good thinking, and challenge them. It's kind of like the garden in the ground is more important than the garden in our mind.
Wow.
That's kind of short-sighted thought, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned the statement of strength, and Andrew, I'm going to put you on the spot in just a moment with a website. But you mentioned a statement of strengths, and you've been in the studio all morning, if I'm not wrong. You've been in the studio recording statements of strength in times of adversity. It's a program we have called Minute with Maxwell. It is 100% free. There's no subscription. There's no catch your name. And Andrew, I believe it's leadwithjohn.com. Is that right? Leadwithjohn.com will give you access to the Minute with Maxwell that John does and that you were just talking about, the strengths test. And I got to tell you, not only have you Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, today made yourself and your wisdom and your perspective of leadership available, but the fact that you've been in the studio the last 2 days recording statements of strength that will help us. And I will challenge you. Some of you are already a part of Minute with Maxwell, but I'll challenge you over the next 60 days, you're going to want to be a part of it because John's going to give you a thought every single morning to give you strength in this time of crisis. Let's go to the next question, John. Leslie Smith. Leslie Smith asked the question, how do you manage a team that is emotionally sensitive and each member diverse?
Who asked that question?
Leslie Smith.
Good luck, Leslie. Oh, shoot. Well, I think there were two things that she had.
Yeah, they're emotionally sensitive, and each member has a lot of diversity. It's a diverse
I think diversity is wonderful. So that would, I mean, when you ask how you handle diversity, you value diversity. The reason you love diversity on a team is because they come from different perspectives, different experiences, and really, when you're all going for the same mission and vision, you want as many perspectives as possible. It just really rounds you out in a beautiful way. So the diversity, I think, is kind of an asset, not a detriment. Now, when people are emotionally sensitive like that, what I do in those cases, I've done it hundreds of times, is I sit down individually with the person, Mark.
Yeah.
And I just talk to them about their emotional sensitivity. And I ask them to give me boundaries. I say, okay, it seems to me that you are, quote, like easily offended. Is that true? And yeah, well, so what can you give me boundaries on what seems to be offensive to you? And I try to listen to them. I'm listening to them not only because of clarity on boundaries. Really what I'm listening to is I'm listening to see if this person really can handle the kind of meetings I have.
Yeah.
Because to be honest with you, people that take everything personal, I can't handle it after a while, because we're trying to accomplish something, and people that, it's all about me, and how about how I feel and what I think, and there are a lot of times I lead people in the direction they should go that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not about me. In fact, one of the things I like, Mark, about you with the different John Maxwell team enterprises is that you have upfront expectations with people when they come on the team, and one of the things you teach them, Mark, which I think is so solid, is it's not about you.
Yeah.
And just before they get offended, you say, "But let me help you. It's not about me either."
It's not about me either.
Hey,
yeah.
It's about the big picture. It's about the vision. It's about the mission. So I think you have to individually talk to those people. But when you're asking them boundaries and those things, what you're really trying to ascertain, really, there's a lot of people, they shouldn't be at the table. I don't mean this unkindly, but if they can't be a big boy, big girl, and handle some tough issues without taking everything personal in their life, after a while you just realize that you're not going to be healthy, and you're not going to make progress with that.
Well, and I hear you make this quote all the time. Leadership is about disappointing people at the rate they can stand.
Yeah.
And I think you asked the question, Leslie, how do I manage a team? And I'm not messing with you on your use of words there, but managing a team that is emotionally sensitive is going to create a lot of dysfunction, because you can't manage it. You cannot manage emotion. Emotion changes every day. It changes with the stock market. It changes with the next outbreak of virus. Yeah. You got to lead. You got to lead that team. And I've found for us, John, and I learned this from you, is one, I don't lead by airing everything I've got out there.
No.
I mean, how do you...
You can't moan and lead at the same time.
The leadership is about disappointing people at the rate they can stand. Mm-hmm. And so, especially with emotional sensitive people, I get the leadership perspective set, and then I go deliver it to the team. If they're emotionally unstable, I don't invite them into the complexities of leadership. Yeah. I provide leadership and then lead them where we're wanting to go,
Oh, that's very good. On your team, Leslie, you need people that will lift you up, not wear you out.
Yeah.
And so you just have to kind of look at your players and, ask yourself, are they a plus or are they a minus in my life? And then lead them accordingly.
So, John, the next question is Elizabeth Cantu. Elizabeth asked the question.
That's a nice name. Cantu?
Cantu.
Is it like C-A-N-T-O?
It's C-A-N-T-U. Cantu.
Cantu, yeah.
But I like it. Can do, Cantu. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. How can I use my knowledge in emergency room nursing and coaching to rise above helping my nurses not just know but be beyond this pandemic? Let me re-ask that question. Sorry. How can she's got a lot of nurses there.
Sure.
How can she lift their vision? They're caught up in the middle, and it sounds like she's one of the nurses, and she's trying to lift the level to see something bigger than the pandemic.
Well, I think sometimes, it's hard too when you're in the middle of a crisis. I mean, when I think of like an ER room, when you're dealing with a lot of people that are, some of it will be life and death, I think you do get immersed in it, and I think that it is very easy to be caught up in the moment and the emergency of that moment. I think that you do I think you do two things. One is during the emergency of the moment, your behavior should be lifting people up, okay? Not your words, your behavior. I think in between the crisis moments is where you begin to perhaps share or talk to them about how it could be, or find one of them that really would be doing well in that moment, and then compliment them on that process. But I think sometimes during difficulties, you don't have leadership teaching moments as far as what you say. You have leadership action moments, what you do, and let them see you have a spirit of encouragement and. Let them visualize what you want them to possess, because basically people do what people see, not what they hear.
Boy, leadership action moments. Boy, Elizabeth, I hope that helped you. That definitely helped me. Next question is from Deborah Marshall. Deborah, I love what you're doing with Missouri Life Magazine. She leads the sales and marketing of Missouri Life Magazine. Here's her question. What is the one or several mistakes that businesses make during a crisis?
Well, I think, and when you ask about businesses, I think it's true with business. I think it's true with humans. In a business perspective, I think one of the challenging things is to put people first when you know you're going to get financially hit, because you have a business to make some money, to have a good bottom line. Well, this isn't helping the bottom line. And so I think that the leader is wrestling constantly between what's best for the business and what's best for the people. Now, here's what I do believe. I believe that what's sometimes best for the people is not best for the business.
Right.
So, and I think that's where the values come in. If I value my business and the money more than I do the people, then guess what kind of a decision I'm going to make? I'm going to put the business first. So here's what I say. Put people first. You may take a financial hit for that, but when you walk down the street and you look at them, you can look at them in the eye. And you can have the integrity of knowing, okay, I lost a lot of money, but I treated you right.
Wow.
I think think about it. You have to live with yourself. And if you have to live with yourself, you really want to make sure that you always put the people first. I think that's the right thing to do. So I think that's always in a business.
Yeah.
And then you have these huge issues that you have to deal with of letting people go. I mean, a lot of times you're letting really great people go because the business can't sustain it right now at this time, or you're putting them on some kind of leave or furlough. And let me tell you something, that should be very hurtful to the leader.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I see a leader flippantly cut people or let them go, I said, wow, I don't think you love the people. You may love the business, but I'm not sure you love the people. And I tell leaders all the time, when you stop loving people, quit leading them. Because when you stop loving them, Mark, you know what you start doing? You start manipulating them. And that's always wrong.
That's exactly right. You know, I had a friend call me, Ricky, called me last week, has 2,000 employees. The next day, he was going to have to let 500 of them go.
Wow.
25%.
Horrible.
And he said, Mark, do you have some coaches that can come in and help this leadership team cope with how they're going to deal with letting some people go at this point? And one is, I thought it was a big statement of him. The people that are staying, he's working to get them some support, somebody to work with, somebody to think with.
Well, I think that's really
But it goes to this thing. We've got to social distance. John and I are social distancing today. But you can't relationally distance.
No.
We've got to find people that'll walk with us. And John, you are helping me tremendously. You're on camera, you're helping the world. Off camera, you're helping me. I'm leading in a way that I've never led before.
No, you haven't been there before.
In fact, that goes to the next question. Watch this. It's from Kamiko. And I love this question. This just came in. Kamiko, thank you for asking this. What advice would you give to your younger self about crisis and adversity? Let's say you were 20 years younger, maybe me, John. What advice would you give me? Your younger self.
I've got a great smart aleck answer for that. Because what advice would I give to my younger self? I would give my younger self the advice of listening to the older self. I would just say, hey, young John, listen to old John. He's been through a few battles and through wars. It's a great question. It deserves better than a kind of flippant, funny answer. and the fact, here's what I do believe, though. When I was a young leader, I wish I would have spent more time with people that were more experienced and successful. I did good, but I didn't do great.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way: I could have done a lot better, Mark. And it's not. I'm not putting a premium on old age or even experience, because there's some fantastic things that youth bring you as far as energy and risk and things. So it's not like experienced people have it over inexperienced people, but they have, for sure, if they're successful. Now, I'm talking about only successful people. I'm not talking about old people. I'm not talking about people who worked all their life. I'm talking about people who've worked all their life and they're successful. Here's what I know. Here's what I know. The questions you have for someone older that's experienced and successful, they've experienced the question you're going to ask.
Oh.
Now, that's huge. There's one thing for me to know how to answer your question, and there's another thing for me to have experienced your question.
Wow.
And the difference is, if I've experienced your question, I can give you wisdom, especially if I was teachable and successful. If I answer your question without the experience, I can just give you a good answer. But what you're really needing during a crisis is wisdom, not just a good answer. In fact, I tell young people, you already have a good answer, you just don't have wisdom going with it.
Yeah.
So you're a little unarmed. You know what is right, but you don't know why it's right, how it's right, when it's right. It's the experience that gives you that outer coating that makes you really solid.
You know what I love about that answer, John, is just a few days ago, I asked John a question, something about how to deal with something in the crisis. Do we make a decision now? Do we wait? Mm-hmm. And John, you said, you very rarely do you say this to me, and hear me all the way out here. You said, man, Mark, I don't know. I've never led in this kind of a time. But then very quickly, it gave me comfort. You know what? I'm leading in unprecedented times, and my mentor, 20 years my senior, doesn't know either. I mean, he experiences, I don't know, but then very quickly went, but let me tell you what we did when 9/11 hit. Let me tell you when my ISS company, a stewardship company that John had that's raised $4 billion for nonprofits. Let me tell you what we did during that time. Yeah. So asking somebody, and let me get the name again, Kamiko, asking somebody or getting somebody that has more experience, that has done something, is very good. They may not have led here, or they may not have led exactly in your situation, but they can give you experience based on another time that reminds a lesson in how you walk through it.
That's very insightful and it's very good, Mark. And I would just say this. When I give Mark my mentoring or my experienced answers, I then let him make that decision. Mm. I think the trouble that we older people get into is when people ask for advice, we want to control. And I've never had you come and say, John, could you control my life for me? You've asked for advice. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And advice means I give you my best thoughts, my best shots, my best wisdom. But then you've got to go make that decision.
Yeah. Because
how are you going to get the experience if you don't go make that decision on your own? So I think that as an older person, a mentor or whatever, I have to always remember what my place is. My place is to give you everything I can give you, the very best that I can give you. But at the end of that, then bless you and say, now it's yours. You become a better leader by making the decision. You don't become a better leader by me controlling you.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us young leaders, if you'll allow me to call myself young, I don't think I qualify for that anymore. But
just
for
my eyes, you qualify.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Say more.
You look awfully young to me.
But for those of
Too young.
those of us that are really working hard to lead. And I've had some brand new opportunities to lead in January, only 6 weeks later to be hit with the coronavirus that's becoming the corona financial virus as well. And I'll tell you this is what I've told you, John, and I want to encourage some of you that are leading and wanting to lead. Lead through this. Lead through this. The moral authority of the previous generation came when they led through difficult times that they had never led before. And John, I want 6 months a year. I don't know how long this is going to be, but I want 6 months to a year for you to go, wow, Mark's a great leader. I picked him. I like him. Man, he gained moral authority in this one.
Yeah, that's
my commitment to you.
Well, you're going to do that. That's going to happen to you. And you can't get moral authority in a classroom. You don't get moral authority through knowledge. You don't get moral authority through position or title. You get moral authority by taking people through a leadership crisis successfully. And you're going to get that. But what I think I want the listeners to hear right now is that that you and I have high odds of losing millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Okay? You just need to hear that, okay? And yet, we're still thinking of the people first. We're still keeping our values. We're still thinking clearly. We still have a real sense of peace. And we don't know the outcome. And I think that's powerful. That's where you get moral authority. Yep. On the back end, everybody can brag and lie, but in the middle, there's no bragging and lying here. This thing this thing could put you under. This thing could put me. Who knows where it's all going to go. But can I tell you something? There's an expression that Alan Malawi taught me, who was that great leader at Ford Motor Company when he turned that around. And that when things would go that he didn't always like or just challenges he had to make, I loved his expression when he just always said, "It's okay."
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yep,
it's okay. And all he was saying is, "I'll figure it out. There's always an answer. Don't have it now, but it's okay." And what I want you to see about this is that when you have that sense of sense that there is an answer, and you have that sense of confidence within yourself, what that means is it really works in the bad times. See, don't miss this.
That's right.
Don't miss this. Everybody's secure when everything's going their way and confident when everything. But we're telling you right now, I feel secure. I feel confident. I feel confident. I'm going to lose some money, but I feel confident that there's still an answer, and there's a way that we're going to find the answer. It's okay. And I want you to see that. Enough about our situation. Let's get back on your situation.
Well, let's address the question from Krunal Patel. He says, "What message?" Well, by the way, he said, "Thank you so much for the last 3 days. They were a difference maker for him."
I'm glad to help you.
What message, leadership lesson can you give for people who are on the front line of this crisis? He said this is a very challenging time for leaders in healthcare. And so what message would you give to the people that are watching today on the front line?
First of all, I think some of the new heroes, Mark, that are rising in this crisis are the healthcare people.
Yeah.
When I see them with the long hours they're putting in, the danger they're putting their own lives in, all that they have to wear. I mean, can you imagine all day long having all to carry? It's you make us all proud, and your commitment and dedication to serving others and putting people first is just absolutely huge. So I know we maybe are talking specifically about healthcare, but here's what I want you to hear. I think that in a leader's life, I don't expect this to be where you are now. I expect this to be perhaps to a level you can get to in time. But I think that when a leader can say, I don't have to survive. I think there's great strength there. I think there's something beautiful about a person who is committed to their principles and values to the place that they can look at you and say, well, I may lose everything I have.
Wow.
But it's okay because, okay, just think about it for a moment. Could there be a higher calling for somebody in health to save another person's life and be risking their own? To me, that's a beautiful thing. That shares what kind of a quality of person that you really are, that you do put other people first and you do serve others first. And I think that's just a beautiful thing. And in my life as a leader, I can remember very well, Mark, in my 40s, pretty much coming to the place where I didn't have to survive. I said, okay, I know who I am, I know what my mission is, I know what my calling is. I'm good. And I think there's an incredible amount of moral strength when you're that way. I mean, what are you going to do with a person like that?
Yeah.
You're just going to admire them because they're saying, it's okay, this is my calling, this is my mission, and I'm going to do what I need to do.
You know, in the leadership perspective there, John, is I think about 9/11, and this is not a political statement, but my greatest memory of George W. Bush and his presidency was just 2 days after 9/11, being right there with all the workers.
Sure, that was
and
beautiful.
saying, we will beat this together. My greatest memory of you in leadership, by the way, is the last 3 days when we shut our event down, and yet you found a way to get into a studio and still have a voice, a leadership voice. And when 9/11 hit, you had a big a national event going on, and you changed the whole direction.
Sure.
By the way, raised $6.7 million to send to the victims of New York. But what does leaders do? Front line or not front line? They get to the front line. Get to the front line. Yeah. Make yourself relevant to the crisis.
Yeah,
Make yourself relevant. They're making us go on quarantine. So the biggest challenge is how do I go in quarantine and stay relevant and stay on the front line? Yeah. That's my biggest leadership challenge. And what I've seen from you is leaders get to the front line. So guess what, health leaders? You're on the front line exactly where leaders want to be in times of crisis.
You know, let them see you. They may not always hear you, but let them see you.
Yeah. Let's ask this question from Catherine. She's from Calgary, Canada. She says, my question is this: having learned from you that we are to develop a positive life stance, feed our faith, starve our fears, and that this time of adversity will make us relatable to others, how do we now focus on others? We've been focused on ourselves, but whether it's family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, customers, how do we help them cope and see the opportunity of advantage in adversity?
Well, I think this is, by the way, I enjoy Calgary a lot. I remember taking my family up to the Calgary Stampede one year. That was fun. I think leaders, again, it's all about values. If people truly are first in your life and you truly are intentional in adding value to them, then when the crisis comes, you just have a greater opportunity to do it to more people. But nothing really changes. You see, the crisis may change your circumstances, but it doesn't change your values. Mm-hmm. And so what I would say to you is if you added value and put people first in good times, you'll do the same thing in a crisis. But I'll be honest with you, if you put yourself first in good time, you probably in bad times will be looking for the exit door yourself. And every man for themselves, every person for themselves. So I here, values show up the most during the most difficult times because that's where your values are tested.
Yeah.
Because most of the time your values aren't tested. But during difficult times, all of a sudden the things that you live for and believe in, convictions, principles in your life, they start showing up pretty quick.
Isn't it, don't let me misquote you here, but don't you say that crisis or difficult times doesn't make a leader, it reveals a leader? It
reveals a leader. Yeah, it doesn't make it. Yeah. You're already made. It's like toothpaste. Whatever's inside of you, it just squeezes out. Trust me.
Hey, Jacqueline Whelan, she said, I sit on the board of education, and I believe we will see significant transformation to our public education systems moving forward. Based on your experience, based on conversations and wisdom, based on conversation you're having and wisdom, what are the significant shifts that educational leaders should be incorporating?
Well, I think you're doing it right now. You send them home and they're doing online courses. And I think that there's going to be a lot of shift in education. I just have a sense, of course, I mean, trust me, I'm not a prophet here, but I just have a sense that online, if people do online classes for a period of time, I think it's going to change the way that some kids want to be educated.
Yeah.
I just think that it's going to rapidly increase online learning. And I think that education, healthcare, all of us, one of the things a crisis does is a crisis just kind of gets rid of the stuff. It's kind of like if you move from home to home, they say, what is it? 3 moves. Maybe it was 3 moves is like a house fire. You know, I mean, if you move about 3 times, you get rid of all the stuff that's not necessary, or you have a house fire and you get rid of all the stuff that's not necessary. I think a crisis is like a house fire. It really and when you lose some things, you look back at some of them and you say, you know what, that wasn't that important anyway. I couldn't do without that. And I think in education, there's going to be some major shifts. But most of us don't make changes until we have to, and this crisis makes us have to. So we'll make the changes. It would be nice if we made them on the front end, but we're going to make them. I just think if you make the changes on the front end, change is a little bit more successful than it is on back end. It's surely it's less expensive on the front end than the back end.
Yeah, I love this question by Valerie, John. It just came in just now. What is the best advice you can give us on reaching out to our community and to small businesses around us to help them through this?
It's a great question. And the reason I love that question is because you're talking about people that live right where you are. And I'm writing a book right now. In fact, I'm going to have a lot of time to write this book now because of all the stuff that's been burned out of my life. But I'm writing a book called Change Your World, and it's about community transformation and how to be a positive influence and transformational person in your community. And I would say 3 things to you right now. One is use the influence with the people that you have. In other words, that's where your greatest effect is going to be. I would say number 2 is help them in the area of the things that you're good at. What are your strengths? Help people in your strengths, because that's where you really kind of lift them the most. And number 3 is be available. Be available. There's something about just people knowing people aren't looking for answers. It's like I tell people all the time, where when people are going through a heavy time in their life, they're not wanting wisdom from you when you go to see them. They just want care.
Oh, well. They
don't want wisdom. You know what? I've never seen a distressed person taking notes yet.
Yeah.
It's and so they just, sometimes people say, well, I've just had a friend be in a major accident. I don't know what to say or what. I said, you don't have to know what to say. They're not looking for knowledge now. They're looking for care. And so I think that what you do is you show care, show a lot of care and concern. And those 3 things will help you.
Yeah, and Valerie, what I'd say to you and everybody watching, John, they're giving me numbers. We've got thousands and thousands watching us right now. I'd say 2 things. One would be agreeing with John. Find somebody to care with you. Get a community. And again, honor social distancing, but there's other ways like this to create care. In fact, what we did, one of the additional outcomes or value adds that we did with the last 3 days is we equipped all of our John Maxwell team members. Anybody that's been certified, mentored, spent time with John, we're giving them a mastermind on what John taught on Sunday, leading through crisis. And I would challenge you, go to johnmaxwellgroup.com and find a coach near you. They're in business, they're small business owners, but they're also in the business of caring. We've taught one of our DNA culture characteristics is we care for people. We add value to people because we value people. Go to johnmaxwellgroup.com and find one of these coaches that will go through a 8-week mastermind with you on what John's talking about. They'll create a virtual environment, do it for you and your team. Secondly, maybe you want to be a team member. Maybe you say, man, John, you've kind of made me want to be a carrier of hope. I want to be a flame carrier of leading through crisis. And maybe you'd like to join our team, and you can go to johnmaxwellteam.com and find information out there about joining John's 33,000 coaches in 170 countries. We'd love to have you. We need some more carriers of hope that can help us now. So hopefully those two things, John.
Those are really good. Let me just say, as you were talking there, Mark, something really came to my mind. I think hopefully it'll be helpful to you, because we're asking, what can we do? What can we do? Make a decision and take action on doing what you know and can right now. Now listen to me very carefully. So, when we said we can't have the conference in Orlando with the JMT, it's not going to happen. So how can we help people? Well, now watch how this happens. So we made a commitment. We said, okay, well, let's go online to our coaches and let's take care of our 33,000 coaches. Let's go online there. Let's start there. So now we've made a decision to take action. Now listen to me very carefully. Creativity comes to you when you're taking action. Not when you're thinking. Don't miss this. So once we started taking action, then the team said, and when I say the team, I'm saying the team because I'm not really sure whose idea it was, but it came from one of our team members, maybe you, Mark, probably you're the leader, but the point being, somebody said, well, then I'll tell you what, let's put John out to everybody. Why should we just... I mean, we got more than John Maxwell team members that want to have help during this time. So let's just make it available to everybody. And so almost 1 million people benefited from that. But now watch how these ideas come. So now I'm in here pitching and helping. And I'm thinking, you know what? We do Minute with Maxwell, but I need to get specific and give you some statements of strength. So I said, well, I'll do 30. So now all this is coming to us while we're working, while we're taking action. Remember, it all comes to you when you're taking action. It doesn't come to you when you're sitting on your butt. We're supposed to leave footprints in the sand of time, not butt prints in the sand of time. So I got into 30, and all of a sudden I thought, you know what? Wow, shoot, we could do 60. And then Mark said, well, John, after the 3 lectures, could we do a Q&A, what we're doing? Now, all the stuff that's happening is happening while we're happening.
That's right.
What part of this are we missing? If we don't happen, it doesn't happen. Not even sure that'll stand up as a phrase, but I like it.
I like it.
But do you see what I'm saying? So I run into people all the time, and they're saying, well, I haven't done anything yet because I'm not sure what to do. Who said you had to be sure what to do? Just do something that in your heart helps people. Trust me, once you start doing something, the insight, the thoughts, the ideas, the creativity, the experiences, the opportunity, they'll come to you, but they come to you when you're taking action. So hopefully that helps you, because I can promise you there's thousands of you right now and you're saying, what can I do? Do it. Just, you say, what can I do? Do it. Well, do what? I don't know. What's on your heart right now? What is it? A phone call? A text? I don't know. But start doing something, and then all of a sudden, opportunities will come your way. Trust me.
I'm going to butcher this. You recommended a book that I read. We're people of faith. This book may not impact you if you're not, and that's okay. But you told me this year I needed to read Spiritual Leadership. So March is my month to read spiritual leadership, and I was reading yesterday on the essentials of spiritual leadership.
Yeah.
And
J. Oswald Sanders.
Yes, J. Oswald Sanders. I'm going to get this wrong, but he was talking about how a leader has to have vision and courage. That's 2 essentials. And he said, you know, a follower sits and waits, and the greatest perplexity for a follower is what is the right thing to do?
This is so good.
I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. Yeah, it's over there. I could go get it.
But you're in clover.
He said the greatest challenge for a follower is, can I make the right decision? Can I make the right decision? The greatest challenge for a leader in crisis is being confident that you made a decision that you can live with. And so many times, and I butchered that, but so many times we spend so much time waiting for the right decision or the perfect decision to come, rather than making a decision and living with the consequences of the decision we made. He said the greatest challenge for a leader is to be confident in living with the consequences of your decision, not in waiting to make the right decision.
And the answer to that, because that was a book that greatly impacted my life, and the answer to that on being confident that you made the right decision, I can help you right now. I can cut this to a chase and help everybody. You always make the right decision when you put the people first. End of story. I can tell you stories of where I put myself first and had conflict about it. But I've never had conflict. And again, I'm not telling you when you put your people first that all things are going to go well. But when you put your people first, you can live with yourself. I don't have to have a lot of money to live with myself, but I do have to treat people right to live with myself.
So, John, we're an hour in.
We're now.
We got a lot more questions. The team's just shooting me.
Well,
some
you're just
steps.
taking too long.
Well,
Mark.
listen,
My
no.
Gosh.
The team is shooting me numbers, and we've only had a couple of hundred people drop off from Facebook Live. So, are you good going with another hour?
No.
And if you want to share it,
if we're helping people,
yeah, if you want to share it, if you want to tell some people that John is on here answering questions about leading through the crisis, certainly feel free to do that. But let's stay for another hour if you're good with that.
Rock and roll.
Hey, Christopher Singham from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher asked the question, I'm sure I am not the only one who feels this way, but do you think there is a massive crisis in leadership today? Is there anyone that is showing us, besides you, John, how to lead effectively?
There's a massive crisis in leadership. Trust me.
Yeah.
Massive crisis. In fact, we're leadership deficient. And that's everywhere. We're leadership deficient here in America, but as I travel around the world, two things are happening that are both a little dispiriting to me. One is we have more dysfunctional leaders than we've ever had before because our culture has been dysfunctional now for 2 generations. First generation gets the followers, second generation gets the leaders because the followers of the first generation have children. And the dysfunction then in these leaders who have leadership qualities shows up. So that's an issue. Secondly, we've lost our way values-wise. In many leaders, they basically put themselves first before others. And I don't know when I've ever seen leaders who do what they think is politically acceptable more than what's right than in our culture today.
Wow.
So we have a leadership crisis, and I would agree with you. Now that I've said that, all that does is that challenges me to get the message of leadership out, the right message of leadership out to more people as quickly as we possibly can, and have events like this where we can get straight to you and do our best to serve you and help you. And I would just challenge anyone that feels that we have a massive leadership shortage, be one person that makes it a little less of a shortage. I mean, you stand up and stand out and live a life of right priorities and values and make a difference. Start making a difference. So I think realistically we have a leadership shortage, but I do think we have the answers. You see. Whenever I have a problem, if I can find the answer, it's then just a matter of time before that problem is solved. And there are answers that we know on how to have good leaders and to provide good leadership. We just now need to get the message out to more people.
Yeah, that's the reason you're so passionate about the John Maxwell team. It's just giving legs to people that'll go out and show what real leadership looks like.
You know what, Mark? It's interesting because I never started the John Maxwell team until I was, 64.
Yeah.
So, 63. I mean, at the time I could be quitting and retiring, and it's probably the best leadership decision I ever made. Now, I don't think I could have started the John Maxwell team earlier in life because I think the reason our success of less than 10 years, 33,000 members, is because for all these years I've developed a leadership reputation.
Yeah, right.
So it was not like an unknown stepped up and said, let's have a coaching company, let's have a John Max leadership team. So it was kind of like I had to build up this reputation and the results of a very good leader for people to be attached with it. But when I see our John Maxwell team members and I see the difference they're making around the world, I have I just have such great joy. I remember when we were in Birmingham, England, a few months ago, and we had a terrific crowd there. I was teaching leadership, but what do we have? Maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 of our John Maxwell team members from England coming over, and they're just in there jumping in, helping, and have this great spirit of encouragement, and they truly are legs to my legacy. I'm so proud of them.
You're talking about couldn't do that until you were later in life. I'm not a race fan. I know I sound like I should be a NASCAR fan, but I'm not a race fan. But you can't really draft off of anybody that's not going anywhere. You got to have somebody that's going full speed for the draft to work. And so, John, we are drafting off of you as I'm drafting off of you as a leader. All these people watching.
Draft away.
Yeah.
Draft away. Come be a part of the John Maxwell team and draft away. Get behind me and let me take you faster, hopefully further than maybe you could go by yourself. And I think that's the key. One of the things I understood about personal development and growth was I can grow and personally develop myself, which every one of us could and should do that. But the day I learned to come alongside other people and partner with them, all of a sudden that growth just begins to multiply instead of add. And I think that's one of the things we've done, I think, really well in the John Maxwell team is we've multiplied success for people because they were already doing well, but once they attached themselves to us, it was like, wow, that was like the good housekeeping seal of approval, and they just took off.
And this is a personal question, and it's my business, so indulge me just a moment. But my greatest concern in a crisis is people are going to stop investing in themselves.
Yeah.
They're going to stop reading. In fact, Amazon had just came out yesterday and said, we're going to wait 6 weeks to deliver what started our core business. They're not delivering books for 6 weeks. They're not guaranteeing because of all the essentials. And I'm not faulting Amazon. I know they're keeping us all with household goods right now. But here's my concern. They've made a decision. They prioritized and said books, those kind of things, we'll get them out as soon as we can, but we're going to do it. My greatest concern, John, and it's my business, so this is a self-indulgent question, but how do we cast the vision to people who are so focused on crisis that if they don't keep investing in themselves to grow and lead, they're never going to get out of it?
Never. They're in a rut. In fact, my question is, how are you going to get better if you don't determine to get better? I mean, really, how did you just expect a genie to appear and all of a sudden grant you 2 wishes? Do you expect just the next ticket that you win is a lottery ticket? I mean, how do you expect to get better if you're not willing to invest in yourself and be better? And what I tell people all the time is that the first person you should ever bet on is you. The first person you should ever invest in is you. Because if you get better, everybody around you can get better. But if you don't get better, nobody gets better. You become the lid to everybody's growth and development. So I completely agree with you. The time that you need to probably invest in yourself is the time when you least think that you can afford it.
Yeah.
But that's where the return goes. It's like, I can't remember the movie, but oh shoot, I wish I could remember the name of the movie. But they asked this race car driver how he was so successful in winning so many Grand Prix. And he said, let me explain to you. He said, when there's a wreck, everybody slows down. And he said, I win the races because when there's a wreck, I speed up.
Yeah.
In other words, while everybody else is in trauma and crisis, oh my gosh, we got to slow this thing down. He said, now's my advantage to get ahead of the pack. Now, and that's what he said. What I'm doing is I'm invested in my win while everybody else is trying just to hang on.
I drive through the wreck. Hey, so this next question is a great question, but for your benefit, I'm not going to use your name to protect the guilty or the innocent.
Guilty?
You'll understand that in just a second.
Well, I can hardly wait for this.
John,
question.
during all crisis, what is your advice to middle management leaders that are trying to lead when their boss isn't? And I'm afraid your boss is watching, so I'm not giving your name. How do you lead when your boss isn't, John? And for those of you, there's probably several of you that applies to. This is for you.
I think that's funny. Yeah, I think you're a real friend to somebody there.
I did not. I protect you.
Say, when did the crisis get back? Well, when Mark Cole read my question about a bad boss and he
That's right.
gave my name, the crisis just became a worse crisis.
Well, he even made it worse. He said, even worse, how do you lead when you know your leadership is needed, but the CEO isn't? I did not give you your name. I didn't give your name.
Oh, my shoot.
So the question, John, is
so
as a
funny.
middle manager, leader, how do you lead when your boss isn't?
We
in
know,
crisis?
you know as well as I do, I wrote a best-selling book, a million seller, called The 360-Degree Leader, based upon that question right there, because I would do leadership conferences, and people come up and say, I love these principles, but I don't have a leadership position at the top. And that's when I began to help them to say, you can lead anywhere. And the 360-degree leader was all about how to lead from the middle of the pack, how to influence people above you, beside you, and below you. And in fact, they did a version of that book called it's something about how to lead when your boss can't.
Yeah, how to lead when your boss can't or won't.
Or well, maybe it's best. I love the title of that book. It's kind of.
I just hope nobody on our team is reading it.
Yeah, it's well. Think about it. If you're middle management, you don't give your boss that book for Christmas.
No.
You know, it's I have a book for you.
And don't leave it open on your workspace either. That's not a good move.
Yeah. How did you lose your job? Well, you know, my boss came by and he saw this book, and next thing I knew, I was out in the parking lot. What I do say to people is this. First of all, if you're trying to lead up, it will be quite impossible to lead up unless you have developed a good relationship with the person above you. So what I always tell people is serve well, add value continually until you get the attention of that person that is over you. And then once they realize that you truly are an important part of the team and you truly are making their day better, then there are certain things that you can do as a person to maybe influence them. But before you can give them direction, you have to have their attention. And before you have their attention, you have to produce something. So you do well in your job, get their attention, let them know that you really do care for them, and this isn't your personal agenda, and then hopefully you'll have an opportunity at time to have an audience with them where you can truly, sometimes, really help them. But it all begins not with telling your boss what to do. It all begins with you adding value. Here's what I know. You know this to be true, Mark, in business. When somebody on your team is constantly adding value to you, you notice them quickly, and wherever you go, you want them with you.
Yeah.
I've watched leaders take people all the way to the top right with them because they looked at them and said, you're indispensable to me.
Yep.
And so I think that you have to prove yourself and earn that audience with that boss before you can really perhaps influence them.
It's another very related question, and I'm not going to use the name on this one either, but this individual works in a healthcare organization, and their department's senior leadership is silent during this crisis. So it's kind of the same thing, except it's on communication. And she said they are working from home, and we're here, which is okay. I guess that's where a leader needs to be. Back to my front line. I've got an issue with that, but okay. But as an employee, I do feel like communication is so important to me. I'm not getting communication. What do I do when I'm not getting communication from an absentee leader?
And I'm very sorry about that because you do deserve it and you need it, and somebody's failing you, no question about it. Now that we've talked about your situation not being so good, you have to go ahead and do what you think is right. You can't wait. Your job is too important, and I think there are times when you just, because I'm a person of faith, I would pray for wisdom and guidance. But I think you need to make some decisions based on what you think is, again, right for the team, not based on what you think is right for yourself. But what's in the best interest of what we're trying to accomplish, our mission and our purpose. But you need if they're not coming to you and helping you, then you need to go ahead and make decisions. Because here's what I know: you doing nothing isn't going to help anybody.
Right. That's right. Hey, let's shift gears a little bit. Ken Hartley listened in at least to day 2.
Obviously, this is a legitimate question because you gave your name, Ken.
Yes, Ken. You're
This
on the
isn't
spot,
a question
bud.
about the bad boss you got.
I hope this is a good question because I called you out. Ken Hartley is a ministry leader, and you have so many, because that's your background, you have so many ministry leaders that are looking at you. And I love this question because we do have a lot of ministry leaders, faith leaders that's tuning in. I believe as you taught in lesson number 2 that the church is also experiencing a fundamental shift in the way we will lead and minister to our people on a weekly basis. So as leaders in the faith community, pastors, how do we balance our response of faith during a crisis with social responsibility to the people we serve?
Well, I think faith is social responsibility. What did Jesus say? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. I think he was basically saying, love God passionately, that's faith, and socially distance right now. I mean, I think that's what he's saying. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You wouldn't want to give someone the virus. You wouldn't want somebody to give you the virus. And I think that's right in line with faith. And I think it shows terrific respect for people, respect for life. Now, none of us like this. None of us. I mean, we're all frustrated because, pastors want to have their congregations live. I mean, hey, musicians want to be in a concert hall right now. Yeah. Hey, the NBA wants to be playing basketball, and I tell you right now, I'm missing March Madness. Okay, so we're all in deficit here. I haven't found anybody. I mean, think about it. It's bad enough to have to be at home all the time, Mark. But I can't even watch any ball games. Yeah. And, basically, that removes about all TV for me. But for all of my pastor friends, I'm here to tell you, this is your finest hour. Yeah. Your finest hour is when crisis meets faith. Trust me on this. Because people are more receptive to God and to faith right now than they are in good times. It has been proven. In fact, I did a paper one time in church history class on how persecution helped the early church. And basically, the bottom line is when things are going bad for the faith community, things go good. Yeah. And when things go good for the faith community, things go bad. So this is your hour, and we can either. Pastors, we could either be moaning the fact that we can't congregate our people together, or we can be saying, okay, what am I going to do now through social media, through these mediums that we have? What am I going to do now to help people I've never been able to help and to touch people I've never been able to? So, what did our friend Chris Hodges do? This was beautiful. Huge.
So we're great. One of the most influential pastors in America is Chris Hodges, a friend of John and myself, and he is on our board. He's on our board of Equip, John Maxwell Leadership Foundation. Can't do church. He sent us a picture of his parking lot. Oh, it was on. We were getting ready for this. It was Monday or Sunday, I guess, and they sent us a picture. And his parking lot was more full, perhaps, than it's ever been, because his church decided, since we can't bring a worship experience to bring them, let's bring a service experience to them. And they're doing drive-through testing of the coronavirus in their church parking lot. Beautiful. He sent us this picture, and there were tons of people in his church parking lot. We just thought that was beautiful.
Well, that's what faith is all about, right there. I love that. That's leadership. That's creative leadership. And by the way, once Chris does that, another good idea will come to you. Again, what you've got to do is you've got to take action to get creativity.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to, I am going to give this name out, Paul. But it could be any Paul around the world. I love his question.
Okay. He says, he's positioning you, Paul, I can tell you that.
He says, share with us strategies for balancing work at home so we don't drive our families crazy. I'm not paraphrasing Paul.
That's not possible.
I'm not saying that Paul said so that our families don't drive us crazy. I didn't say that. He said so that he doesn't
Crazy's happening
drive
right now.
his family. Seriously, what boundaries should we put in place when you're leading 300 people virtually and you're also at home with the demands of that?
Well, I think you have to sit down and have a family discussion around the table. And I think in that family discussion, you got to hear from everybody. Because not only are you affected that way, your kids are affected. They're probably having to do online classes right now. They're not able to go to school, and so they're needing some space, and they're needing their place. And I think the best thing to do is sit down as a family and say, okay, let's all talk about what we're going to have during this time. I mean, what's essential, and let everybody kind of declare their boundaries and their time limitations. And then look at it as a family and say, okay, what's workable, what's not workable, what do we have to compromise on? And it'll be something maybe on a weekly basis. You got to come back to the family table and say, is this working?
Yeah.
And if it's not working, how can we make it work a little bit better? But I think whenever you're facing that type of tight conflict like that, the only answer is to have everybody come to the table and have discussion until everybody gets to vet what they feel, what they need, and everybody gets to hear that, and then we begin to develop a game plan.
Yeah, I love that. Let's go to the question. This is a little bit different off of coronavirus, John. John Winclaw, he says, I'm rounding out 20 years of service in our country's great Air Force. And John, thank you.
Thank you very much for what you do.
Thanks for your service, and for every country that has service women and men that are watching.
We're
thank
indebted
you for
to
serving.
you. We're indebted to you.
So he says, I'm often thinking about planning for upcoming transition to civilian life. From your decades of experience in personal growth, what unique traits, values, and characteristics have you observed for people that has been so long in one industry to transition to something new?
Well, it's really a challenge because that transition is tough because you have been in one area for a long time and you have learned it and have done it well and it feels comfortable to you and it's pretty much who you are. And now you're going to go to something that is very different. And I would say this. There's a statement I use often, and I think it's a very helpful statement. Don't leave something, go to something. If you're just leaving the military, but you don't have any idea what you want to do, you're going to flounder for a little bit because you're not going to something. Versus a person who's leaving the military and they're saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to pursue in my life. But now that I've said that, Give yourself a little time and be patient on yourself because it's not going to be easy. The transition is going to be uphill because everything that you knew and everything you were good at was in that last area. Mm-hmm. So now you've got to ask yourself, what is it that I had in the military that I was really good at that I can take now into my next area of business or life? And whatever that is, to define it. Define what you really were really excelled at. Then you look over to where you're going and ask yourself, am I going to have the opportunity to exhibit those traits and flesh out those strengths of mine? And the more that you can find over here something that is similar to something over here that you did well, the quicker you're going to be able to transition and the quicker you are going to be able to get established and hopefully do well in that area.
John, let's switch gears. I got a couple questions here that's kind of on a personal level, if you're okay with that. So the first one is Amelia Powell. She's writing from Romania. Her question is this: what do you think transformed you to be the number one leadership expert in the world? Did you plan it? Was it destiny? What is that one thing?
I didn't plan it, so I can answer that one quickly. I would be honest with you. I think there's some destiny in it. I really do. I think that I think anybody that has been able to have what I have and the influence and the titles and positions, I think that, again, I'm a person of faith, so this is very easy for me. I'm not trying to make you uneasy, but I feel that God has destined my days and my ways, and I feel that I have a calling. I don't have a career. I have a calling. If I had a career, I'd already be done. I mean, I don't mean this wrong. I've got the money, so I'd be done. This is a calling. A calling you don't toss aside. And so I would say to you that with the destiny and the calling, God was kind enough to give me a phenomenal passion for what I do. And that makes me love what I do and expend the energy to accomplish what we've been able to accomplish. I would also say one other thing that is very true, and that is I am where I am today because I have had great people around me. I don't think anybody achieves greatness without having a great team. And, Mark has been with me for 20 years. And I can tell you, people like him have just absolutely changed me and helped me and lifted me. I mean, I'm much further along because of my team than if I'd have tried to go solo. But here's what I tell people. I never wanted, being number one has never been something that's been on my bucket list. But being the best that I could be has always been on my bucket list. Yeah. And I think that so many people, they strive for titles or numbers or positions, and then they're kind of left unfulfilled because they didn't get there or they fell far short or whatever it is. I just wish that you would focus on being the very best that you can be. And then let life take you where it's going to take you. Because if you're going to be the very best that you possibly can be, whether you are number 1 or 1,000, it doesn't really matter. You lived your life to its fullest. And don't let someone else put a number on you. Don't let someone else kind of determine how successful you are. If you are doing your very best and you are constantly giving it 100% and you are constantly growing and you have the right values and motives, then pat yourself on the back and be proud because that's what's expected of you. Being number one, that's just do your best. Be your best. That's what I want for you.
Good. Another personal question from Lisa Whitney. Lisa asks, John, I'm curious, what is the most profound lesson that you have ever learned, and how is it impacting your actions even today?
Well, oh my gosh, Lisa, hundreds and hundreds of lessons. I think I have to go back to, I don't know. Here we go. I'm going to give you this one, and then I'm going to think of another one. I'm going to think of another one. So I'm going to give you the one I think of first. I go back to when I was 40, and I really was working hard, and I was doing well, but I was not pleased with where I was. I thought I should be making more of an impact and having a greater influence. And so I just kind of asked myself, why didn't I achieve and I came to the conclusion that I had not invested in my team like I needed to. I was doing too much solo and not enough team stuff. And that's where, in 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that's where the law of the inner circle comes out of. Those closest to you determine the level of your success. And I made a decision at 40 that I would mentor people, invest in my team, do my best to give them opportunities for leadership, and that it would be from here on out, not about me, but about the team. And I think that was probably that really has made a difference in my life because here's what I found about developing a good team. In the beginning, it's a pain and it takes a long time. And in the beginning, you go slower. You have to slow your pace down to bring people along. But once you bring them along, then they carry you further than you would have ever been able to go on your own. So it's kind of like, it's slow in the beginning and it's incredibly amazing in the end. But you've got to go through that beginning to get to that end.
So let's go around the world a little bit, John, and we're back to coronavirus. Mandla from South Africa asked the question. My question is, during crisis, how can you make your team believe in you and your actions?
Well, first of all, I don't think you ever make people believe in you. I guess it would be nice, Mark, if as a leader you look at your people and say, okay, believe in me. Just believe in me right now. It's time for us to all believe in me. But you can't legislate loyalty. You can't legislate belief. It has to be earned. And I would just say, to any of us in positions of leadership, every day we're either earning respect from our people on a daily basis that starts to compound until it gets pretty big, or we're slowly chipping away at that trust factor, and it's only a matter of time until they're not going to follow us. But I heard somebody one time say, well, I demand respect. And I said, well, I'm glad you do. You can't get it that way. But, I can't demand anything from people. I must earn this from people. Mm-hmm. And so I would just encourage you, lead people well, treat people well, and earn that respect. And then one day you have it. And it's like when I was a young pastor. I was 22 and went to my first church, and I had people 40 years of age come to me and they'd say, John, we're sorry, but we have kids your age. We can't come to you for counseling. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't mean this wrong, but you're a kid. And I looked at him and said, I agree. In fact, I wouldn't even go to myself for counseling, okay? I'm not qualified to do that for you right now. I think so many times we try to position ourselves for acceptance instead of position ourselves for growth. And I would just encourage you, just grow and develop yourself. Hey, if you get better, everyone will recognize it, and no one will have to call your attention to it. And if you don't get better, everybody will realize that too.
Yeah. One of our faculty members, not only on the John Maxwell team certified that we told you about last hour, we have a mentorship program of women and men that John has mentored.
It's a great program.
It's an incredible program. Christian Simpson, who actually mentors on the Maxwell method of coaching, he made an interesting statement yesterday in an event that he was doing. He was talking about joint mentorship, and he said, I know it's hard at this time to invest in yourself. It's hard to make that commitment, but John Maxwell teaches everything worthwhile is uphill. It's an uphill moment for some of us to invest in ourselves. But he said, hey, I'm not going to ask you to trust me. I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to ask you to test me.
No, I love that.
I did too.
That's a good distinction.
It's a great statement. He said, we don't know how to trust right now. So find somebody that you believe has something that can help you and test them. And then trust will happen after that.
I like that.
I did too.
And by the way, let me say this. The person that can be trusted is willing to be tested.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
If somebody said, well, no, I don't want you to just trust me on face value. You sit there and say, no.
Yeah.
No, let's test you first. I like that. That's
I do too.
Way to go, Christian.
So let's go to...
Good faculty.
Yes, exactly right. So let's go to Gabe, who's in Milan, Italy. And let me say this to those of you that are watching from Italy.
Our hearts go out to you.
Yeah. And it goes out to all of us. Some of us have a business crisis that is impacted by the health crisis. And then some areas of our world has a health crisis that could care less about a business crisis. And wherever you are, you're being impacted by this crisis. But when I saw this question, Gabe, from you, in Milan, Italy. We have team members there. We have friends there. We have some of our nonprofit partners that are there. And our heart goes out to you. Yeah. And it goes out to all of you again. But I just wanted to give a shout out.
They're getting hit hard.
They are.
Well, I mean, it's like even in America, my understanding is 10 counties in America have over half of the people infected with the virus.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very little part of America, but that's ground zero right there.
It is. So Gabe asked this question about how would you take people who don't know much about leadership on a journey, and where would you start with them? They don't understand leadership, so how do you get started with them?
Well, it's going to take a long while. Okay, let's start right there. There's no quick hit on leadership lessons that turn you. And the reason it takes a long time to develop leaders is because you have to develop leaders by practicing leadership. So it's one thing to read a book, and I've written a few of them. So it's one thing to read a book on leadership. It's another thing to practice what you read. So what I would say is very simple. If you're wanting to develop leaders, what a beautiful time you have right now in this crisis to get them serving, giving, sharing, encouraging. But you got to get it. Go get some action. Go practice it. We practice our way to becoming a great leader. We don't think our way to becoming a great leader. So just get them. Hey, roll up your sleeves and get in action. I cannot impress upon all of us enough to say, now is the time for us to take action. Start where you are, start with what you know, and proceed and move forward.
Yeah. I'm not going to give the name of this next person either because of the nature of the question. But John, the question is this. It says, and I'm going to read it in its entirety because I want you to get the context of it. They said, it's a couple. My question is, I agree that the number one rule in crisis is to put people first, as John said on day one and as you've said today. This question just came in.
Sure.
But then while weighing the pros and cons over our business, I am faced with a dilemma of keeping people on board but losing my business. We have no clue how long the coronavirus spillover will last, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. How should we deal with the idea of losing our business and money only to keep people on board so that we communicate?
That's a great.
That's a brilliant.
You
question.
know what? It's a question that really deserves an answer, because you have heard me say over the last 3 days, probably a couple dozen times, put people first, put people first, put people first. And that's a wonderful statement. It's a true statement. But what does it mean to put people first? And I think that's really, because I love this question. It's a hard question, but it's a fair question. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do for your community is to stay in business. And what I mean by that is, when things do kind of pass away, you want to be able to have a viable business to hire people and to help people and to serve them. And sometimes it means that you have to make very hard decisions. So let me tell you how I would approach this. For example, let's say I have a small business, I have a dozen people, and we're just not going to be able to withstand the storm. The first question I would ask myself is, what can I sacrifice, first of all, as a leader? What do I give up? What do I give up? Am I able to go 6 months without a salary? Am I able to trim down my lifestyle? What am I going to give up? And so I figure out what I'm going to give up, okay? And then I go to my people and I just share with them, now look, this is a very difficult time for us, and here's what I'm going to do without. Now I'm going to ask you if maybe we can keep the team together if all of us give up. But I want you to know I've gone first, because I will be the example. I'll tell you where we learned this from was Colin Sewell.
That's correct.
Remember what Colin, in fact, when Colin was with us the other day talking about it, he had already told his team what he was giving up. And then didn't he say something? I asked them all to just write down what they were willing to do.
He asked all of his leaders, brilliant move by a brilliant leader. One is he established what he's giving up, he and his wife.
Start with yourself first.
He also established, John, I won't get too much into Colin's business, but he also established with his wife what he's willing to go and sell to keep the business afloat too, some of their very important personal things. But he asked his leaders, he said, hey, I want to know what you're willing to give up from a frame of reference of cutting your salary before we go to the rest of our staff.
Sure. And what happens is, what you're trying to do is you're trying to find out if it is reasonable to even hold the business together at the time. Now, it may not be. It may be the fact that you have to let six or maybe half of them go. But let me tell you something. You should never ask people to sacrifice or give up until you have led the way. And when they see you have given up, then all of a sudden it makes them much more willing to say, okay, well, maybe I could do this. And so putting the people first doesn't mean that you don't have to let people go. It may be just a fact that you can't continue it all without letting them go. But before you cut people and let them go, make sure that they know you're taking the hit first. I think that's where leaders miss it, when they basically say, well, I'm just going to have to cut these people and I'm going to continue my own lifestyle. Everybody looks at that and they say, well, you don't really care for the people first. But when you sacrifice first, then the people know you care for them, even if you have to make some hard decisions with the people.
Yeah. Great answer, and a pertinent one to so many of us.
It was a really important question,
Yeah.
too.
Let's go to a question from Tricia Salzer. She just sent in this question. She said, many of us are working from home in isolated situations right now. I love your daily reflection idea, but do you have a suggestion on how to get focused each morning to start the day in so much isolation?
Well, yeah, I do have an answer for that because I do it myself. I'm an early riser. This morning I was up about 5:15, 5:20, something like that. And when I arise early, I basically by myself do three things. I first of all check in with God, okay, and I'm a person of faith, so you can eliminate that from your life if you want to. And I don't have long devotions or something like that in the morning because I'm a very much of a morning person. So I'm not saying I'm spending an hour with him, but I'm spending a few minutes sharing with him. I love him and I want to serve him well and I want to hear his voice. Just some basic things. The second thing I do when I get up in the morning is I ask myself, okay, what's the most important thing I can do for the team? Not for myself, but for the team. So this week, every day I've gotten up and I've worked on stuff that we're doing now here because we're trying to move this ball forward. So it's not about what's the most important thing or what's the thing I want to do first. It's kind of like, how can I help Mark lift the load? How can I add value in that whole process? Then the third thing that I do after I check those two things off is what do I need to accomplish for myself that's going to help move my ball forward. But those are just three things, and it's just a simple discipline. It's not difficult. But here's what I find. When you're kind of alone, you can do all those things. Nobody's going to come in and interfere with you or distract you from it. Yeah. So that's kind of my game plan. It doesn't have to be your game plan, but I do that every morning. It's just very simple, and I get on track as quickly as I can because all's well that begins well. Here's what I believe. I believe people do a huge disservice to themselves when they're slow in the mornings of moving. Because I just happen to believe a person has a huge advantage over others if they get up early and start their work early. I just believe that you get in front of other people that start 2 hours later. Can I tell you, be honest with you, they're never going to catch up. They're good people, but they won't catch up. So those morning hours are pretty precious to me.
Yeah, and let me say this, Tricia. We said this in the last hour. We're 90 minutes, 100 minutes actually into this session. But we mentioned this last session. You might have missed it, Tricia, or you might have some new people come in. Another thing that John has just spent the last 2 to 3 days doing is creating these, what did you call these moments that you just recorded?
Oh, statements of strength?
Statements of strengths. He and his team have put together some ideas on how to take the next 60 days and to start your day with a statement of strength.
Start with that.
Yeah, we're going to deliver that through our Minute with Maxwell program. You can go to the Minute with Maxwell program. You can get that with Lead with John, leadwithjohn.com. You can go to the johnmaxwellteam.com, or you can go to johnmaxwell.com. There's 3 ways to go get that. And I would challenge you to do that. Another thing, John, that you and I do, it's a segment kind of like this, Candid Conversations. We do weekly podcast.
Oh, yes.
And I would challenge you to go to johnmaxwell.com. You can go to johnmaxwellleadershippodcast.com, and you can get a podcast of John teaching. I would challenge you, Tricia, and the rest of us. This is not just a Tricia relevant answer. All of us need to increase our intake inventory in positivity.
Absolutely.
Listen to your favorite news channel, whichever that is. I don't have a favorite one anymore. My favorite is the off button. But you probably have a favorite intake of news. Balance that with people like John and people that John has invested and poured into your life, Tricia. Every one of us need to start the day much more intentionally with words and ideas and people like John that'll pour into us. So the podcast, Minute with Maxwell. John, you want to say something there?
The news media, bless their hearts, they're not getting up every day and asking the question, how can I add value to you? They're asking the simple question, how can I get more viewers? And they get more viewers by sensationalizing stuff. And I'm just here to tell you, you need to be giving your time to people who every moment are asking a very simple question. how can I add value to you? And this is a time to read good books. This is a time to. I have 6 books on my desk that I'm going to be reading during this time. This is a good time to invest your time with people who are investing in you. That'll give you the return.
John, there's several questions about what book do you recommend right now. I'd like you to recommend 2 books right now. One is yours. Be a little self-serving right here. If you were just getting introduced to John Maxwell, what's the book people need to read right now? And secondly, what's another book maybe that's sitting on your desk or one that you've read recently that you'd recommend?
Well, I think Leadership is the best book because it's a crisis and it's all about adjusting yourself to what's happening around you and being flexible. So I would recommend my book Leadership. I'm passionate about a book that Simon Sinek wrote maybe 8 months ago now called The Infinite Game.
Phenomenal.
And I think that's a huge book for you because it'll get you out of the crisis real quick. I mean, it basically says the crisis is a finite game, and there's a bigger game going on than the crisis. I just ordered a book, and I just got it yesterday. I read everything that David Brooks writes, and he wrote a book that had just got on my desk. I think it's called The Second Mountain. But it's basically how to have an orderly, good life. I wish I knew for sure if it was The Second Mountain, but that sounds right. Maybe somebody here in the studio, one of our team members, can figure it out.
What's his name again?
David Brooks, and I just find him incredibly insightful, and there are just certain people you read after, and he's one of them. I do.
The Second Mountain.
Yeah.
David Brooks.
Yeah, there he is. Okay, that's one of my books on the on my desk.
And then you read recently Atomic Habits that you loved.
I love that book.
So there's a couple.
That question by James Clear, I think.
Yep,
James Clear. That's a great book too. Thank you for that one.
Well, that question's been asked a lot, and so there's 4 suggestions. But Leadership is the one that you need to start with.
I think so. Well, no. Shoot both of us. Shoot. Hey, I don't think we put the people first on that. I think selfishness started to creep out of us just a little.
You're right.
Hey, smack that selfishness.
Hey, you got to believe in what you're doing, right?
Well, I do totally believe in what I'm doing. And I am going to say, truthfully again, if I had one wish for you outside of just doing really well and serving you well, I would love for many of you to really be a part of our team, John Maxwell team. I just know because of what we've done for 33. Somebody asked me the other day, Mark said, "How did you get 33,000 members in 9 years on your John Maxwell team?" And I said this just honestly: you have to be good.
Yeah.
You just have to be good. 33,000 people don't join you if you're not good, and what happens is they join and then they refer.
That's right.
The growth has been the fact, not in our marketing program. The greatest growth is these people become members of the team and they find out how it begins to beautifully change their life, and then they go get their friends. And so anyway.
Yeah.
Love to have you.
So, hey, we're not the only ones self-serving on this Facebook Live. I just got a question. I've got to read this because it's putting me on the spot. Mark, are you giving a book to the people whose question you ask on this live feed? The question is, Mark, John, are you giving a book to the people whose question you ask on this live feed?
I love that. That's not self-serving
Not at all.
So,
not at all.
wait, okay, we'll give a book to that one just for
We're going to give a book
bonus.
to there, and we'll get to sign that as well.
Am I allowed to ask that question?
Who asked it?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know, but they didn't give that to me. The team didn't give it to me.
Well, I think that's pretty
Hey,
funny.
let me ask you this from Anthony Elliott. He says, my question is, I'm an introvert and a thinker. How can I be the best leader I can be in a time of crisis when oftentimes I fare better when I've had time to observe and analyze the facts and then come to a decision? Because I know in times of crisis, many times the questions need to be handled quickly and on the spot.
That's a great question. I would say in this crisis, that's not as important as some, because you're exactly right. I mean, like a 9/11 crisis, bang, and the next day it's over. The ramifications are not over, but I mean, the hitting the towers are over. So I think some crises require very fast decisions, but I think in this one, somebody that would be introverted, a good thought leader, a good thinker, I think you've got a lot to add value to this because we're not going to get out of this quickly. And so I think that anytime you have good insight about what's happening, what could be happening, I think you're going to be able to have really good influence. I think this crisis doesn't really call for fast action and fast decisions as much as some of them would.
Well, and you and I talked about one of the most difficult parts of leading right now is that most leaders don't like to lead from behind.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. It doesn't even make sense. And yet many of us are leading from a step behind. We're reactive. We're responding right now because what's the world going to do? Can we even challenge our people to come into the office today? We're really leading after we hear what's going to happen, and it's a real awkward place to lead right now.
Well, it is. But the more confidence you have, the less awkward you feel. Let me explain that to you. Because, we were in Israel when all this started breaking loose, and I just basically said, get all the information, but we don't have to make a decision yet. Hold your cards, look at them, and let's see what we have. And we'll make a decision, but we don't have to make a decision immediately. I think that, no one has the answer. So let's just start there. So when somebody says it's going to be 6 months, it's going to be a year, it's going to be 3 months, I don't think anybody knows the answer. I don't think we're needing anyone to know the answer now because I don't think that's possible. I think what we are needing people to do is to be people that keep their values and have people that have a sense of calmness and security. I don't know how long it will last, but I know that we'll outlast it. That's what I know. I know that we'll come through it. And I don't know how we'll come through it, but I know we'll come through it. And I think that what people are wanting more than answers, Mark, is security, confidence, inward strength. And I think they can tell if their leader has that or not. And I think they migrate to leadership. I think one of the reasons we've had such great numbers on our conversations and talks is because I think people realize, that we're not pretending to have answers yet for them. We are telling them that we're going to make it, and we're giving it. We're giving it. There are principles that you can give in a crisis that will outlast that crisis. That's what I know.
So that's a great lead into this question that I really did want to get to. Richard Curcio said, how do we as leaders compartmentalize our own concerns, fears, uncertainties, and still show strength to others in their fear and uncertainty?
Who asked that, Richard?
This is Richard, yes, sir.
Richard, that's tough. And let me tell you why it is tough. It's a very good question. How do I start this? Compartmentalizing. Okay. I get a little concerned with the part of the question where it says, well, how do we compartmentalize our own questions or insecurities and yet lead with confidence? I don't think you do. To be honest with you, I don't think you can. I think that's fake it till you make it leadership, and I don't think fake it till you make it leadership works.
Right.
So I think you've got a choice. The choice I would suggest is that you don't compartmentalize your fears at all. You share them. You get a handle on them, but you go tell your people that you don't have all the answers and that you have some concerns yourself. But you see, it's one thing for me to say I have some fears or concerns and then look you right in the eye and say, but I do know this, we'll get through it. Than it is for me to say I have some fears and concerns and I have no idea if we will get through it. There's a world of difference between those two. And I think leadership is seeing things others do not see and saying things that others do not say and doing things that others do not do. And so I wouldn't try to act bold if I didn't feel bold. I wouldn't act like I have no concerns if I had concerns. I would just say I have some concerns, but let me tell you something. I have greater principles that I'm going to follow than the concerns that bother me. I don't think you hide. I think the moment I hide something from people in my leadership, I hold from them the leadership that they deserve.
So I have one more question from Mike Turner that I want to ask you, John. You've added tremendous value. And this is going to be a great question from a millennial, somebody that's wanting to make a difference. Before I do, there's a couple of housekeeping questions that I've got that I can answer, so if you'll allow me. One is from Maria. How do I find one of John's leaders in my community that could help me, help us, help our team? And thank you, Maria, for that question. That's really what we dedicate our life to, is to reproduce John. John just wrote a book called The Leader's Greatest Return. If you haven't gotten that, you need to get it. It's really how John has reproduced himself through others, myself and other leaders, including leaders in your community. So you can go to johnmaxwellteamgroup.com, johnmaxwellgroup.com. Sorry, that didn't make sense. johnmaxwellgroup.com. And there's a tab down that says Find a Certified Team Member Near Me. And you'll be able to go in there, let us know where you are, and we'll be able to direct you to some team members close by. So Maria, our goal, John's goal, was not just to have 3 days of great content. He can speak in front of any microphone and give great content. Our goal was to give the world hope and to give our team members, our certified team members, some things that would help their community in such a time as this. So johnmaxwellgroup.com. johnmaxwellgroup.com, and they're texting me to make sure I get it right here. And so that's where you can go there. A lot of people are saying, what do I do with all these kids at home? I mean, I've got all these kids at home. My kids are at home. What do I do constructive with my kids? And John and his writing team has created a product that we're very excited about. We have not even strategically released it yet, but it's a product called I Lead. And it's 32 weeks of content, 16 of teaching the content, 16 weeks of applying the content that are literally being learned by, well, it was being learned before they sent them all home, in schools all over Latin America, all over South and Central America. And we're bringing it to the U.S., but we already have that content available. You can go to John Maxwell's Foundation website. So JMLF. .org, JMLF. What that stands for is John Maxwell Leadership Foundation. Sorry, I had to think about it a minute. John Maxwell Leadership Foundation.org, JMLF.org, and you'll be able to get a sample of it. And so I want you to go and make use of that. As I've already said, the podcast, John Maxwell Leadership Podcast, Minute with Maxwell. John's going to give you special messages over the next 60 days with our Minute with Maxwell program that you can sign up for on johnmaxwellteam.com.
I promise you, I have not even thought about that, because that's a free resource for them.
It is.
I will promise you, as parents, if you just go to what he said, John Maxwell Leadership,
JMLF.org.
Okay, if you go to that, these lessons that we have are on values, and they're on values. And I will promise you, I mean, I've taken my grandchildren through these lessons. You talk about a productive family time. I just really want to encourage you. You go share those lessons with your kids, and you're going to find a great return.
Yeah, and JMLF.com .org will get you there. JMLF.org will get you there, or you can put JMLF.org/I Lead. And that'll get you there as well. John, I promised Mike Turner we were going to answer questions, so we're going to sign off with Mike Turner's question. And John, here's what I'd love for you to do. And I'll get emotional here, but I'm a leader in crisis. And you have given me 4 solid days of making me a better leader. Yeah. And I'm thankful. And I'm thankful for, on behalf of literally, after today, it'll probably be 1 million leaders that have looked to you for a source. And you've got your own stuff to deal with. You got your own stuff to try to figure out. And you just set all that to the side. When much of the world is kind of sitting back, you engaged, you leaned in. And I got to say publicly here how much I appreciate it. Not just because it helps the little bit of leadership responsibility I'm trying to carry for you and for myself, but because it helped me as a leader to lead better. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Mike Turner is a leader like I am, a young leader. He's a lot younger than me. He's 23. But he's a young small business owner, and he's trying to connect with CEOs, with leaders in their community, and trying to make a difference. And yet nobody seems to be open to talking right now, much less getting help from a kid, from a 23-year-old. How can he get through to them? How do we get through? We have the message now. You've equipped us. How do we take this and how do we go help people that don't even know they want help right now?
Well, first of all, Mike, it's very uphill for you because you're 23. And the first thing when you approach somebody that's a seasoned business person, they just look at you and basically they're not trying to be down on you. They just look at you and they're saying, what's he know? And what I've found is you have to prove yourself. So what I would do is very simple. I would go serve people. And what I mean by that is my entry into those kind of people would not be, I have something to give you. It would be, I would like to serve you. And what can I do for you? I know this is a time of crisis and I love leadership and I would like to add value to you any way possible. Is there something I could do to help you? And let them give you the agenda instead of you bringing the agenda to them. To be honest with you, they don't think the agenda you're going to bring to them is anywhere connecting or pertinent to where they are. So you have to earn your way in, and you earn your way in by serving your way in. And the moment they see your heart, that I just like to serve you, like to add value to you, is there anything I can do for you? Once they see that, and if they give you something, go do it with excellence and exceed expectations, then you slowly begin to get entrance into their lives. But you don't get entrance into your life by what you bring to the table. They don't think you have anything. That you get entrance in your life by what you serve them with. Go off of forget your agenda and go to their agenda. And the moment they see that you're where they are, not where you are, then they'll begin to give you a little bit of time and a little bit of ear. Good luck.
So, John, 4 days.
4 days.
Any final comments that you want to give?
Yeah, it's been a great 4 days. I am emotionally, mentally, physically tired. Because when I leave the studio, my mind doesn't stop thinking about what could I have done better for you? How could I have helped you more? It's a huge crisis, and how can I help you? And so my mind and my spirit has just not turned off at all. And I can tell you it's been a labor of love. I've enjoyed every moment of it. And Mark, I tell you, friend, all the effort and energy we put forth has been worth it. And we are taking we're taking a lemon. Our whole world is kind of turned upside down to us, and this week for sure we've made lemonade. And I want you to do that too. And always remember, we're your friend, and we're here to serve you, and we're approachable. We're approachable. And so come to us, come to our coaches, become a part of our team. Just let's stay together. If we could just stay together a while, I think we could pretty well do something worthwhile. So I love you, and I thank you for being very kind to listen to me for the last 4 days.
Hey, I'm not demeaning any of the load that any of you leaders are carrying, but in this environment, leading through crisis, there's really only been one leading through crisis over the last 4 days. And John, it's been you. We've all been learning through crisis. But guess what? The live feed goes off. We have to switch from learning through crisis and now go lead through crisis.
Exactly right.
Go do something. Don't look for the next Facebook Live tomorrow because we're not going to be here. We're going to lead something. It's time to go from a learner, John, as you say, into an actor, into acting leadership.
Absolutely.
Let's go lead. Thank you for being a part of this last 4 days.
Thank you.